Hello and welcome. So in this video, we'll take a look at the notion of absolute versus relative cell referencing. It's a way of efficiently entering formulas over large areas of your spreadsheet. So let's dive in with the simple example. So you have a bunch of employees with their hourly wages and the number of hours they worked during various days in the week. So for example, Liam has worked for 11 hours on Tuesday and so on. So we want to compute their total wages for each day for each employee. So let's begin with Ethan. So I can basically say Ethan has hourly wage of $32 per hour times the number 9 hours that Ethan has worked on Monday. So I'm just pointing to each of these cells and bringing those cell numbers into the cell here to enter the formula. As you have seen, I could also type it in. So I hit enter, and now I have Ethan earning $288, which is 32 times 9 on Monday. Now I would like to enter a similar formula for all these other days, but as you can see, that's a lot of data entry to do. So is there an efficient way to do this? Well, earlier, we saw how we can drag this bottom right square dot over to various cells. We can drag it down, or we can drag it to the right as well. So we could try to do that, but that'll quickly give us some weird answers. So let's take a look at what is weird about it. So if you drag it to the right, what's happening is your C7 times D7, which is C7 is the Ethan's wage, and then D7 is the number of hours they worked on Monday, and then Tuesday it is D7 times E7, so which is Monday's number of hours times Tuesday's number of hours, which is wrong. So what you really want is the wages per hour to stay put as C7, and so as you copy this formula to the right, C7 should remain as it is, and D7 should become E7, F7, and so on. So is there a way to do that? The answer is yes. So I'm just going to undo this copy that I just did, and I'm going to put a dollar sign just before the C. Okay, so this is known as absolute cell referencing. So what I'm telling Excel is, as I'm copying this formula to the right, do not change the C to the D, but change everything else. So I hit enter, and now if I were to copy this to the right, I'm going to see that C7 remains as C7. You can, as I move my cursor, keep an eye on this formula over here on the top left, and you can see that C7 remains as C7. D7, E7, F7, etc. does change, so you're getting the correct multiplication. Now you can copy this formula all the way down, drag it all the way down as well, and it'll work perfectly fine. Now, I just want to highlight one other thing. Supposing, what if you had, let's say, some sort of a tax that you needed to deduct from each of these employees before giving them their paycheck. So you have to deduct 10% from their, paycheck. So what you could do is basically C7 times D7 times, you can say 1 minus this particular cell here, C2, and hit enter. So now instead of the original amount, you can now give $259 to Ethan, and these are all the other amounts and so on. But again, the same problem holds. That is, you have your tax rate at the cell C2, and you have C2 over here. But when you copy this, that becomes D2, which contains nothing. D2 contains no data. So you want to make sure that as you're copying to the right, you want to make sure you put a dollar sign before the C2. Okay, and then you copy it. Okay, so this time the C2 does not change, so that the same 10% deduction applies to all the cells. So you're basically making sure the C is staying put as you copy this to the right. Now, as you're trying to copy this down, you're going to see a similar problem in a different kind of way. So you can see all kinds of weird values, and the reason for that is because now C2 becomes D2. C2 becomes C3. C2, just keep an eye on this here. C2, if you go scroll down, if you copy this down, becomes C3, and then it becomes C4, and starts to not make any sense because it's multiplying numbers that it should not be multiplying. So how do you fix that? Very simple. Again, I'm going to make sure I undo this. Here, when you're trying to copy this C2 formula down, the formula that contains C2, when you're trying to copy it down from top to bottom, then you put a dollar sign before the number, because otherwise the number will change. So you don't want the number to change. So you put a dollar sign before the number. So you got a C, $2, and then you copy this to the right, obviously, and then as before, and then now you copy it all the way down, and now you will see perfect multiplication happening. So that is what is meant by absolute cell referencing. Normally, if you don't put the dollar sign, that is relative cell referencing. If you put the dollar sign, that's absolute cell referencing. If you put the dollar sign before the letter, that fixes the letter as you copy from left to right. If you put the dollar sign before the number, it fixes the number as you copy from top to bottom. So that is the concept that you have to keep in mind. I just want to point out one other way in which you can do this. So you have your, let's say I have my original numbers without the dollar sign. I'll just put it that way. Now what you can do is you can use the F4 button. So on the Mac, that I'm using, I'm going to use the function and then press the F4. And actually you can just go to C7, for example. Actually C2, I'm going to C2 first. Press function F4. If you have a Windows, you can just press F4. And the moment you press F4, you can see C2 becomes $C$2. And that's what I want. Next, I'm going to C7. And here, I don't want the entire thing to be dollar. I just want C to be dollar. So for that, here's what I do. I press function and F4. Well, $C$7, I don't want that. I just want $C7. So I press it again. So this time it's C$7, which is not what I want. I press it again. And this time it is $C7. So, and I accept that and hit enter. And having done that, I copy it to the right, and then I copy it all the way down to the bottom to get my complete answer. So that's it for now. I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching.